When you buy a house, you expect to own a slice of peace, right? A safe place for your family to grow, for laughter to echo through the walls, for weekend BBQs and lazy Sundays. But peace isn't guaranteed, especially when there's an HOA. Lurking behind every bush, armed with clipboards and power trips, my wife and I were over the moon when we bought our dream home. Modest but perfect. A two-story house with a welcoming porch swing, a tidy yard for our two rowdy dogs, and neighbors who smiled when they saw us. Or so we thought. We were ready to settle down and build our life together, never guessing we'd become targets of the pettiest war our neighborhood had ever seen. It started small. A passive-aggressive note about our garbage cans. A complaint about our mailbox not matching the HOA's approved color. Annoying, but nothing we couldn't handle. Until the day a letter arrived that changed everything. The HOA board claimed we were habitual violators and threatened us with massive fines. Or worse, eviction. What they didn't know was my wife is tougher than any HOA Karen with a clipboard. She'd served our country with pride. And when she came home in uniform that day, ready to stand her ground, the entire neighborhood learned what real backbone looks like. So, who are we? Well, my name's Tom, just your average guy who works hard, pays his bills, and keeps the grill hot on the weekends. My wife, Sarah, though, she's something else entirely. She's the kind of woman who can break up a bar fight just by walking in, and for good reason. She's a decorated officer in the U.S. Navy. 10 years of service, multiple deployments, and a reputation among her sailors for never backing down when something's wrong. When we bought this house, it felt like a reward. After years of Sarah bouncing between bases and me bouncing between jobs to follow her, we finally planted roots. No more military housing with thin walls and nosy neighbors. No more temporary addresses. This house was supposed to be our sanctuary, the place we could start fresh and maybe even raise a family. We poured ourselves into it, too. Sarah painted the front door a cheery blue. I built raised garden beds out back for her tomatoes. We made friends with the couple next door who always waved when we walked the dogs. Everything felt right until the HOA showed us just how wrong things could go when petty power gets handed to the wrong people. Little did they know, Sarah was about to teach them a lesson about respect, one they'd never forget. But back then, we were still blissfully naive, brushing off those first warning signs as harmless busybodies doing what busybodies do. The first real taste of trouble came about 3 months in. I remember it like it was yesterday. I stepped outside one crisp Saturday morning, coffee in hand, ready to tackle mowing the lawn before Sarah came home from the base. There, taped to our front door, was an envelope marked Urgent, HOA violation. I tore it open, half expecting something serious, but it was a formal warning about our trash cans. Apparently, I'd left them by the curb 12 hours too long after pickup day. 12 hours. I laughed it off at first. Who has time to clock everyone's garbage cans, right? But I shrugged, pulled them in, and thought that would be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. A week later, another note. This time, the mailbox. It was apparently the wrong shade of black. Then they came for the flower beds, Sarah's flower beds, which she'd spent hours tending when she got off duty. They said they were non-compliant with community guidelines because they weren't edged with approved materials. I started to realize this wasn't about trash cans or mailboxes. It was about control, and we'd somehow become their favorite target. Neighbors whispered that the HOA president, a woman named Denise, had it out for military families. Said we brought down the vibe because we didn't always have time to keep up with her ever-growing list of petty rules. I brushed that off too, until the day she marched up our driveway, clipboard in hand, fake smile plastered on her face, ready to deliver the next ridiculous demand. That was the day I knew we were in for a fight. I just didn't know how far they'd go to push us out. The first face-to-face showdown with Denise was something straight out of a bad sitcom. I was in the garage, trying to fix our squeaky screen door, when I heard the knock. When I opened it, there she was, immaculately dressed, hair sprayed within an inch of its life, pen poised over her clipboard like a sword. "Hello, Tom," she purred, like we were best friends. "We need to talk about your lawn." My lawn. The same one I'd mowed twice that week. I glanced over her shoulder at it. The grass was so short it practically begged for rain. "What's wrong with the lawn?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She tapped her pen against her clipboard. "It's not uniformly green. Some spots are patchy. We have community standards, you know. I almost laughed. So now the HOA controls the weather? Denise didn't crack a smile. Instead, she launched into a speech about curb appeal and property values and how we were bringing down the whole block with our neglect. She handed me a printed list of approved lawn treatments, half of which would have cost a fortune. I knew our neighbors didn't follow half these rules, but I could see the glint in her eye. We were the exception. We were her project. Sarah came home halfway through Denise's tirade. She stepped out of her car in her navy fatigues, looking every bit the woman you don't mess with. She didn't say a word, just stood behind me, arms crossed, eyebrow raised. Denise flinched. I saw it, but she recovered fast. Well, I trust you'll handle this, she sniffed, handing me a violation notice and turning on her heel like she'd won something. Sarah asked what that was about. I told her. She just shook her head. This woman has no idea who she's messing with, she muttered. It was the first time I realized Sarah wasn't just annoyed. She was gearing up for something bigger. But at that moment, I still thought we could reason with the HOA. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd back off if we played nice. Looking back, I should have known better. You can't reason with people drunk on petty power, and Denise was just getting started. After the lawn fiasco, Denise and her cronies ramped things up. It felt like every week, a new violation letter landed on our porch. One day it was a supposed oil stain on the driveway. Another day, it was a tiny chip in the paint on our porch railing. Once, they claimed our dogs barked too much, even though half the neighborhood's dogs howled at passing squirrels all day long. The fines started piling up. $50 here, $75 there, always with threats that they'd take further action if we didn't comply immediately. We tried to talk to other neighbors about it, hoping someone would back us up, but most people were too scared. Everyone knew Denise and the board would make life miserable for anyone who spoke up. Sarah was gone a lot, busy with her duties on base, so the brunt of it fell on me. I patched, painted, mowed, weeded, whatever they demanded, but it was never enough. Every time I fixed one violation, another popped up that I started to dread checking the mailbox, worried I'd find yet another fine or threat. It was like they were trying to break us down one letter at a time. And the worst part? They were getting bolder. The last notice didn't just threaten more fines. It hinted at legal action to force us out of the community entirely. When I told Sarah, she didn't say much at first. She just stared at the letter for a long moment, then calmly folded it up and tucked it in her bag. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll handle it." I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I trusted her. And soon enough, Denise and her clipboard were about to get the shock of their lives. The final straw came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was inside fixing dinner when I heard a car pull up. Peeking through the blinds, I saw Denise and two other HOA board members standing in my yard in the drizzle. Smug as ever, I stepped outside, shielding myself with the porch roof. Denise held up a thick manila envelope like it was a trophy. "Tom," she said sweetly, "we're giving you official notice. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Your violations have made you a threat to this community's integrity." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're kicking us out over grass and paint chips." She just smirked. "It's in the bylaws. You signed them. Maybe next time, you'll read before you move somewhere you don't belong." I felt anger bubbling in my chest, but before I could say anything, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Sarah was home early. And not just early, she'd come straight from the base. She stepped out of the car in her crisp navy uniform, cover tucked under her arm, ribbons shining, boots polished. She didn't say a word at first. She just walked up beside me, squared her shoulders, and looked Denise dead in the eyes. Denise's smug grin faltered for the first time. "What's this?" Sarah asked, nodding at the envelope. Denise tried to recover. "Mrs. Miller, your husband failed to maintain community standards. The board has voted to terminate your residence." Sarah opened the envelope, read the papers, then looked back at Denise with a calm, controlled fury that made even me nervous. "Pack a lunch, Denise," she said. "You're about to learn what happens when you try to bully the wrong family." And just like that, the tide turned. Sarah didn't waste any time. She invited Denise and the entire HOA board to our porch that Saturday. They showed up smug, as ever, probably expecting a last-ditch apology, maybe begging. Instead, they found Sarah standing tall in her Navy service uniform, hat squared, medals pinned perfectly, eyes locked on every one of them. She greeted them with a calm, professional nod. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Let's get this over with." Denise opened her mouth, but Sarah cut her off. She pulled out a thick folder, her service record. She laid it flat on our porch railing like it was an exhibit. "Before we go further," Sarah said, "I'd like to remind you all that as a commissioned officer in the United States Navy, I am protected under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. This means you cannot legally evict me or my family while I'm on active duty, and you especially can't do it for made-up violations like mailbox paint." The board members shifted uncomfortably. Denise stammered, "That's irrelevant." "We have community rules," Sarah raised a hand. "I know the rules better than you do. I read the entire HOA charter last night. Not one violation you've cited holds legal ground. Not one. In fact, your repeated harassment could be considered discrimination against a military family. Do you know how that looks in front of a judge? Or a news crew?" She let the silence hang. Even I was holding my breath. Then she stepped closer to Denise, lowering her voice but not her authority. "My chain of command already knows about this. I've documented every letter, every fine, every threat. If you want to test me, if you want to stand in front of a federal judge and explain why you targeted an active duty service member's family, go right ahead." Denise looked like she might faint. One of the board members cleared his throat. "Surely we can resolve this amicably." Sarah just smiled. "That's what I thought." In that moment, our porch didn't feel like the battleground it had become. It felt like ours again. And Denise? She shrank back, suddenly so small without her clipboard fortress. Sarah turned to me, handed me the folder, and said, "We're done here." And just like that, they were. Word spread fast after that. Neighbors who'd been too afraid to speak up before started stopping by, shaking our hands, thanking Sarah for standing up to the HOA bullies. Some shared their own horror stories, petty fines, harassment, intimidation. One brave soul even called a lawyer. Within weeks, Denise resigned from the board. The new president, a quiet older man named Robert, knocked on our door to apologize in person. He promised the rules would be rewritten with more respect for the actual residents. He even asked Sarah for advice on how to make the HOA fair for everyone. Our violations vanished overnight. So did the threats. And for the first time since moving in, our home felt like a sanctuary again. The safe place it was always meant to be. Denise still lives in the neighborhood. She doesn't wave when she sees us, but that's fine by me. Sarah always gives her a polite salute when they pass each other. Makes me grin every time. In the end, we learned something powerful. Bullies back down when you stand your ground, especially when you've got the truth and the law on your side. I'll always be grateful for my wife's strength, her service, and her refusal to be pushed around by small-minded people with too much free time. That if you're stuck dealing with an HOA nightmare, remember, know your rights, keep your records, and never underestimate the power of a uniform or a backbone. Thanks for listening to our story. If you liked it, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales about standing up to bullies, big and small.